next known place where Heinz Lewin stayed during this turbulent time was Paris, arriving on June 30th, 1936.
He had certain publications with Smith. I've not been able to trace any of the songs or melodies at all. And he worked in Paris for a long while. He couldn't work necessarily under his own name, so he wrote for other composers. And there seems to have been some sort of complicated arrangement that the Italian Performing Rights Society paid Henri Baum, Heinz, for this, and the money was then transmitted to my grandfather. And there was also somebody in Italy, in San Remo, who had a cousin in the south of France, and I wasn't able to trace either of their families. It was very hard for him, and my father, who was by then in England, used to send money as and when he could, but there was a lot of paperwork and hoops to jump through in order to get him money.
From 1939, their son Ralph tried desperately to bring his parents to safety in England, his mother from Berlin and his father from Paris. Despite all his efforts, he was unsuccessful. The two nephews, Ralph and Henri Baum, were in contact with Heinz in Paris.
Und interessanterweise, es sind ja dann Künstler nach Paris geflohen und 1934, nachdem alles nachdem die Reichskulturkammer eingerichtet war, haben viele Juden in Paris gesagt, es ist doch nicht so schlimm, wie wir gedacht haben. Wir gehen nach Deutschland zurück. Sie gingen zurück nach Berlin. Sie waren schon im Ausland, sie gingen zurück. Und dann kam ja 1936, dann kam die Olympiade und dort war alles normal. Hitler hat gesagt, wir wollen Frieden, wir wollen Freundschaft mit den Völkern. Das war die Propaganda. Da haben viele auch geglaubt, es ist nicht so schlimm. Schlimm wurde es dann mit der Reichspogromnacht. Und da war es schon fast zu spät.
I have one tragic letter where he said he bought himself a pistol, and if my father didn't send him any more money, he would use it. Whether this was melodrama or whether it was his intention, we never knew. But obviously the correspondence never reached my father, and even if he had, he wouldn't have been able to send money for him to continue living in Paris. I've got the papers for my Heinz, that he was given permission to stay in Paris. I imagine that the other two also did, but at some point in the missing years, they all went to the south. Whether they were deported to the south, whether they then lost contact with each other or not, I've got no idea. Together, I believe they all tried to join the French Foreign Legion. At the time, the French Foreign Legion was more or less fighting for the Free French. So that is what they did at the beginning. My grandfather, also Heinz, was not allowed to join, probably on account of his age. And the letter said that he had a hernia. Whether he did or not, I don't know.
After France's declaration of war on Germany on September 3, 1939, all male enemy aliens in Paris had to report to the Stade de Colombe with eating utensils and food for only 2 days. The documents show that Ralph Baum was there, and we can assume that his brother Henri Baum and Heinz Lewin were among the 25,000 other men. After a certain time, they were transported to a collection point. Heinz was sent to Francillon, which was located near the Comte de Blois-Sillot, as the Centre de Rassemblement des Étrangers, CRE, Gathering Center for Foreigners. Heinz was released a few months later and received a residence permit for Paris. However, many so-called enemy aliens were resettled in the unoccupied South in May 1940.
And I don't know exactly when he was sent to a camp in southwest France called Septfonds, which is not far from Toulouse.
Heinz Lewin was arrested and taken to the Septfonds internment camp. There he was named the musical director of the Groupe 302 de Travailleurs Étrangers.
This is the picture of my grandfather that first drew our attention to the fact that he really was here, because he looked very much like my father at the same age. And that's him in the middle. And these are other people from the camp. And that one is a Spanish refugee from the Spanish Civil War. And this is a program from the concert that they did just before they were deported. And here you have his name and the artistic director who did several of the pictures that we saw earlier on. And these are all talented people who were interned in the camp. This one is quite interesting because this was taken by a well-known press photographer of the day, Isaac Kitrosser, and this was taken and sent to the newspaper showing how they were allowed to have Jewish services. This is supposedly at Atonement, le jour du grand pardon would have been the Day of Atonement. And here you have some of the other members of the internees doing manual labour. There was a directive by Eichmann for 200 people actually from Septfonds. Here they have 295, but maybe the others were from another camp. They couldn't find enough adults in the camp to deport, so they rounded up an extra 20 or so children. So this is the reconstruction of a barrack, and the history is documented all along these walls. This is the list of the deportees, and actually you find, if you look up my grandfather, this one, and that's his birth date, and he was on Convoi 30, the 30th convoy from here.
So that's him.
That's him. Lewin, dit Letton.
Ah, dit Letton, d'accord, oui.
Wiesbaden, born 22nd of March 1888 in Wiesbaden.
Of the 24 children deported, 2-year-old Henri Grau was the youngest. A memorial was erected in the town of Septfonds in his and that of the other children's memory.
And here I should add that all correspondence between him and my father ceased because my father was shipped out from England as an enemy alien to Canada while Heinz was in Septfonds. He was allowed to stay 2 extra days for one last concert towards the end of August 1942. And they were on the 30th convoy from Caussade to Drancy and thereafter to Auschwitz, We've got no other documentation, so very sad, very poignant, and we never knew whether he got off the train and was marched to the left to the gas chambers straight away. I think he must have been pretty courageous. There was no alternative. He was amongst a load of people that were like-minded. This was what kept them going, and this was what gave them a raison d'être to bring some joy to their lives and to do what they were all best at. And I think it brought a great deal of pleasure to the French who were living by in the neighbourhood that were also pretty oppressed and not very happy with the conditions that they were living under at the time. It provided a break in the monotony of their days, and a number of them were working in the fields in the vendange and growing food for their existence. So it was a camp war effort for all of them. There were a number of artists who were in the camp with him, musical artists as well as painting artists. And I think there was quite a benevolent camp capitaine who encouraged their work. They put on many concerts in local towns, raising money for the Free French War effort at the time and also in the camp. And we have the programme of one of the concerts and also the music. It was left in the effects of the camp commandant and his grandson or great-grandson put them on eBay, and a local historian from Septfonds noticed them and bought them. And we now have in our possession music that was written over 80 years ago, performed once or twice, but never heard again. I think he was a remarkable man. We have one lovely picture of him rear view, but conducting a chorus at the piano of one of the tunes he must have composed, and they were all singing there, and they were making the best of their life.